Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, today is another episode that was born out of my curiosity because during my former life in IT, I remember thinking about how almost every headset in a call centre or speaker in a meeting room was provided by Plantronics or Polycom. So when COVID-19 hit and every business is now looking for solutions for the new way of working, whether it be on Microsoft Teams or Zoom, it struck me that those traditional companies that had been providing this kit for years will now be highly in demand. So when I did a little research, I quickly learned that Plantronics and Polycom have now become Poly. But how did this new thirst for their technology and shift in mindset affect the company? And how are they stepping up to help and meet the demands and these evolving needs of their customers? So today, Paul Clark, Senior VP and an EMEA MD for multi-billion communications brand Poly, is going to join me right here on this podcast. And Paul is responsible for everything from market strategy to brand development and has played a vital role in guiding the company through the uncertainty of both Brexit and COVID-19. So it sure sounds like he's had his hands full. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way over to the UK here so we can speak with Paul Clark from Poly. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
My name is Paul Clark and I'm the Managing Director for Poly in EMEA.
And for a lot of people listening, they're very familiar with all your products, but a lot of people won't be too familiar that Plantronics and Polycom are now Poly, which is the global communications company that powers authentic human connection and collaboration. So can you tell the listeners a little bit more about the kind of problems that you're solving with tech in offices all over the world? Because like I said, I'm sure everyone's entered a meeting room and seen your products, but can you just bring that to life a little bit?
Well, so the interesting thing is everyone, and I mean everyone, will have experienced someone using a Poly product. And if there's any doubt to that, when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon and said, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," he was wearing a Poly headset. So there we go. We do get everywhere. Yeah, Poly as a company is the combination of Plantronics. Plantronics were the company that invented lightweight headsets, and Polycom, video conferencing, audio conferencing. Many people are familiar with them. The companies came together in the middle of 2018 and reformed under the name brand Poly. So the product's familiar. We still use on occasion the Plantronics brand, still use on occasion the Polycom brand, but the new company name is Poly. And with that diverse range of products I mentioned, we are everywhere, and none more so than now, as people are more and more getting involved in what I consider, the new phenomena of dispersed collaboration. Now, collaboration itself is not new. We've always collaborated. Even cavemen sitting around a campfire would have collaborated. But the way that we do it now is very, very different. And Poly is at the center of enabling that.
I love that phrase, dispersed collaboration. I'm glad you brought it up because the workplace is evolving and being shaped by the unique challenges of the past year and COVID-19 in particular, of course. But I've got to ask you, from your point of view and in your business, what are the big challenges that your customers are coming to you and asking for your help with? Because I would imagine that they're all coming to you with the same kind of questions, aren't they?
Well, they are, and it's all about getting people out the office. It's about keeping the wheels turning of their companies, and the big change, of course, with COVID-19 was people all couldn't be together in the same office, and it's pretty interesting because for at least the last 10 years, and probably a bit more than that, I've been talking to organizations about digital transformation and new ways of working, the ability to work together while you're not physically together. And I've spoken to CEOs, CTOs, CFOs, and for sure, some companies have been working down the path of enabling the staff to work wherever's most convenient for them, not actually having to come into the office. But I have to say, COVID-19 really changed the game. It made organizations almost as one realize they couldn't have all the staff in the office. And before we knew, and literally before we knew, it was in the space of weeks, we had whole organizations wholesale becoming virtual. And that was a phenomenal change. The interesting thing about it, Neil, was historically companies had told me that's a great idea, but it's not for us. We can't do that. And there was a myriad of reasons why companies couldn't move out of their office locations. But I tell you, with COVID-19 and the impact that has on the business, suddenly what we've found is a surprising number of companies, yes, can work from places other than, a single office location. And it's been easier than many companies thought it was going to be at the start. For sure, there are some things that do need physical presence, manufacturing being an example, or, in high street retail being another example. But there are so many other companies where the value add doesn't require people to be sitting together. And that's what's opened eyes to the industry and the world as a whole.
It is fascinating how quickly those attitudes and mindsets change. Because, let's face it, it was only 6 months ago that most businesses and bosses were saying, well, I can't let everyone work. If I let one person or one team work from home, I've got to let everybody do it. And then there was the other side of it with video conferencing, which most people thought was a little bit awkward and steered clear of it. And then all of a sudden, almost overnight, even grandparents are talking to their grandkids every day via video conferencing. I mean, that technology has always been there, hasn't it? But it was just that attitude and mindset was just almost kickstarted overnight.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, it's almost become indispensable now. Think about it. From working in a single location, and then now working in other locations where we're trying to do that, collaboration, and then requiring video, where before many people felt very uncomfortable and using video, which is kind of odd, really, because face to face, you don't feel that uncomfortable. There is real value in having a video experience. I mean, research from many years ago, I'm talking here back in the 60s and 70s, looked at the power of communication between individuals and groups, and what this research concluded was that if you have just voice in communication, so say on a telephone line or something like that, then 17% of the effectiveness of the communication, the actual words that are used. Okay, a stunning 83% of the effectiveness of a communication is tone of voice. That's things like pace, pause, power, the emphasis, and so on. So when you hear that and you understand that, kind of makes sense. What is staggering is when suddenly you can see someone. Body language comes into play. Now that's going to be another factor. It wasn't there when you were just using voice. What's most dramatic, however, is that 55% of the effectiveness of the communication when you can see the person is body language. The other two elements, the words and the tone of voice, drop to 8% and 37% respectively. So the tone of voice and the words are still important, but the body language is so important. It's so much of a nuance to the effectiveness of communication. And that's why we've seen, people wholeheartedly embracing video privately, and you say grandparents being very comfortable with it, and professionally as well, because we want to be, if not intimate, then close with people that we're working with or talking with, and seeing, as they say, is believing. It just allows us to have that greater intimacy or closeness in the communication. So it's pretty staggering. So yes, in very short order, as well as people moving out of the office, we've seen a staggering increase in the adoption and acceptability of video as a form of the communications that we use.
And I'm curious, now most people have that upgraded mindset and that thirst for change and have accepted the new way of working, and being able to work from anywhere has almost become the new expectation. How are office and home working technologies continuing to evolve to meet the kind of challenges that come with that?
Very, very interesting question. How technology can actually enable. I'll give you a perfect example. When people moved out of the office almost overnight or over a couple of weeks, typically the equipment that they had available in their home office was either the stuff which they had in the regular office, which they took with them, stuff which they had at home, or things that they bought as distressed purchases. And I'm talking here about typically, most people would have had laptops. If they didn't, they were pretty quickly upgraded to having laptops. May or may not have had monitors, but webcams or speakerphones or headsets. And that was a kind of pull together and let's make do. What people are now understanding is that the environment isn't as temporary as they thought, and they want a level of elegance in their interaction. So what we're seeing is individuals or companies moving their headset, if I use that as an example, to noise cancelling headsets. And the technology in a headset is pretty impressive. So if you're working from home and you're not working in a small office in your home or a room that you've dedicated, you may be working on a kitchen table or on a dining room table during the day. It's very easy to get distracted by background noise, and within headsets, particularly from Poly, but in headsets you can have an immersive experience. You can have headsets that will remove the surrounding background noise. We call them active noise cancelling headsets. And what they will do is, where you have that distracting sound, it may be a radio playing quietly in the background, it can remove that and allow you to focus on the interaction that you have maybe down your video conference. It can also remove any of the extraneous noise going on being transmitted through the line to the other people on the call. So both noise cancelling technology for the wearer of the headset and noise cancelling technology removing noise is contributed. So it enhances the overall experience for both the wearer and anyone else who's involved in the collaboration. The other thing that you get, and it's pretty interesting, is with some of our meeting AI that we have in our products in Poly, for example, on our webcams and some of our higher-end video equipment, we have the ability to frame the individual, meaning you're removing some of that extraneous background of, the guitar or the child's toys in that room that you're using as your, impromptu office, and it will focus just on you. More so when you get up and you move around, the camera follows you. So it's almost, if you like, automated production of a cameraman within the webcam. So meaning that, again, the focus is on you, and you enhance the level of or the quality of the interaction you have with other people on the conference call. So technology absolutely can help the experience and the productivity of modern collaboration.
And as that kind of technology and how people are collaborating now, I'm curious again, how is that relationship between employers and employees changing as a result of all this? Are there any trends that you're seeing there?
Yeah, I'm seeing, well, clearly when people are no longer in the office, there's a much greater expectation of self-management. And it's beholden on organizations to make sure that they enable their staff to be able to self-manage. And what I mean there, Neil, is things like, when you put people in an office together, there's an element of management that goes on that's almost presenteeism. And so when people are no longer there and they're at home, for example, you're giving the employees trust. So you can see organizations taking that step. And we did this in Poly about 10 years ago. We took the view that trust was there to be given to associates and employees. And, it's for them to lose, but don't make them earn it. Typically in work, you're having adults, and adults have, good moral compasses. So giving trust and having people then be managed by outputs, not by sitting at the desk. So what are they there to actually do? Having individuals understand that, coaching them and training them, the old management by objectives, having people understand what their output-based objectives are, and they manage themselves. So we can see a big shift in the management and employee relationship, or management and subordinate relationship, where the subordinate is much more of the entrepreneur managing their own time. And that works very, very well. Now, you do have to coach people on how do you do that. Some people are good at it. Some people are natural at it. Some people just need the help of how do you start in the morning? How do you make sure that you switch off in an evening and you're not constantly on call? Some people enjoy that, but it's not healthy en masse, and we had to make sure that people are coached and educated to do that. So we're seeing much more now, actually more now than it was in the early days, because in the early days of COVID, it was much more about, as I said earlier, keeping the wheels turning. Now, as organizations are evolved into flexible working environments, we can see companies thinking about how do you train and coach people with these techniques of self-management? How do you have people looking after themselves? So, what are the techniques that they can use? Mindfulness and things like that. And the support infrastructure is becoming much more virtual as well. So I think the HR departments and organizations are really stepping forward and understanding, there's a new type of management that's required in this new ways of working. And it's quite heartening to see how they're responding, because the results even in our own organization have been very, very promising in making sure that people feel engaged, responsible and cared for in the new way of work.
And what I also find really interesting is you guys have been providing the tools and technology for all these environments that we're talking about that are now entering the mainstream for as long as I can remember. And like I said, from a call center to a meeting room, everywhere I've ever been as an IT guy, there's always been Poly products. So it almost feels like Poly's in a great place to turn these kind of challenges into opportunities at the moment. It's almost like you're ahead of your time waiting for this moment. But I've got to ask, what are your biggest challenges right now?
So it's a nice challenge to have, because many people don't have it quite the same way as us. We're not unique, but demand at the moment is significantly outstripping supply. The growth in headset adoption, we talked earlier on about people using video. The growth in video adoption has been phenomenal, and it's across the board. Typically, what we have in my experience here in Poly, and it'll be the same in many other companies, is you may have one or two areas of your business growing and other areas may not be quite in that cycle, and you can balance things out. Here and at the moment, pretty much every area of our business is growing because the demand switched on overnight, and that's a general industry point. So we've been ramping up our production significantly, but of course, as an organization, we live in the real world as well, and like everywhere else, we've had to make our organization, completely virtual. We have a production facility that 3 months ago itself was impacted by COVID, and the factory was closed for a couple of weeks. And then we had to bring it back on, but bring it back on in new ways of working with new social distancing. So like all other organizations, we've had our challenges, but the one we're living with, at the moment is ramping up our production to meet the demand, and that's something that we're fully focused on at this stage.
And I would imagine for most organizations are going to fall into one of two camps, which is going to be Microsoft Teams or Zoom meetings, because they're becoming the norm for everything at the moment. So just on that topic, what products are you offering to meet that kind of demand?
Yeah, great question. So for sure, you can see enormous increase in demand for that collaboration layer of technology, and we connect into that. We're the last meter or so between all of that technology and the humans. So we've been bringing out products specifically for, you mentioned Zoom and you mentioned Microsoft and the others out there. Video bars. What's pretty interesting is we're moving into an environment now of hybrid working. What I mean by hybrid working, Neil, is it was pretty clear, first of all, before COVID, people were working in the office. When COVID struck, everyone was outside of the office. So there was a essential democratization of the response. Now what's happening is people are starting to come back in to their offices, but not everyone's coming in. So you have some people coming into the office and some people not coming into the office. People who are coming into the office aren't in all the time. So what we've seen is, for example, a big jump in the videocation, if I can say it in that way, of meeting rooms. And as they become video enabled, that's happening on a grand scale. So IT departments want to be able to do this and do it quickly. The people who use those rooms don't want to be confused and befuddled by the technology. They want to come into the room and it just works. It's simple, switch on and go. So we've been making a range of products called the Studio USB and Studio X range of products, and these are video bars with varying degrees of integration in them with the technologies like you mentioned Zoom and you mentioned Teams, to be able to enable employees to walk back into their office, walk into a room that's now been video enabled by their IT department, and quickly switch on and be familiar with the experience they have of using Zoom, using Teams, or using the other technologies, but it's a video enabled room now with outstanding audio quality. So it's been really pushing us as a manufacturer at Poly to make sure that we can enable that simplicity of use with things like the Studio product. Okay.
Excellent. And are there any other new tech products that are proving popular at the moment, as your customers all their needs seem to evolve at once? There must be something else as well.
Yeah, I mentioned the headsets a little bit earlier. One of the things we're seeing a big demand for is wireless headsets. Typically Bluetooth, also DECT-based technology. The difference between Bluetooth and DECT is very, very good audio quality, relatively long range. You can walk quite a long way from your desk with DECT, but it typically just connects to that base station at your desk. Bluetooth proving more and more popular because people like the choice of being able to use their mobile phone or connect through their laptop device. So wireless technology or cordless technology products, typically around Bluetooth, and then incorporating active noise cancelling. So Voyager Focus family products or Voyager 4200 family products from Poly are proving incredibly popular because people are now wearing headsets for longer periods. They never want them than they ever have before, and they want them to be comfortable, and incidentally allow them to concentrate. So that active noise cancelling is proving incredibly popular.
It almost seems ridiculous me asking this question now, because 6 months ago, I think we were all excited for entering a new year and a new decade and had a lot of plans for this year. We all know how that ended up. But what is your primary focus at Poly over the next 18 months? And is there anything that excites you about the role that technology will play in our immediate future?
I'm incredibly excited what Poly as a company and what the technology we bring can do to enable new ways of working. When COVID first hit, we as an organization responded very, very quickly. We ramped up our production. We had base level technology. We'd only just launched, a new range of video bars. What happened is subsequent to that, we've accelerated the development. We expanded the range of our video products. I can see over the next 12 months, 18 months, the organizations really will start to embrace that hybrid working, accepting people will sometimes work from home, they will sometimes work from the office, and they will look for that consistency of experience. And I believe that Poly as a company, because we are in the headset space, because we're in the speakerphone space, because we're in the conference phone space, because we're in the video space, we can offer that consistency so that when any employee in any part of the organization wants to collaborate with others, they can do that. And we as an enabler of endpoints can initiate with technology and then just step back to allow people to be the best.
Fantastic. And I think we would have opened the curiosity of a lot of people listening. So anyone that would like to explore this topic further with you guys, how can they find you online? And what's the best way of contacting your team if they've got any questions?
Oh, it's really easy. If either if you speak to your reseller, we are a very, very widely distributed and resold company. So you speak to your reseller and ask about Poly. I'm sure they'll be able to help you. Alternatively, if you go to www.poly.com, you can find your nearest offices, lots of telephone numbers. You can reach out to the most appropriate person as you wish.
Excellent. Well, I think universally, everyone's going through the exact same challenges today. And rather than focus on those challenges, I love how you guys just evolve to meet it with opportunities as well. And also how office and home working technologies are evolving to meet these challenges, and things like meeting spaces equipped with touchless solutions for safer collaboration. That's probably a topic we could maybe talk about in the future as well. But more than anything, just a big thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Neil. It's been great speaking with you.
When I first started finding out more about Poly, yes, I expected that they are everywhere, but I didn't expect that Neil Armstrong was on the moon wearing a Poly headset at the time. And I love the phrase that Paul used there, dispersed collaboration, because I think that is something that everyone is chasing right now, because the traditional workplace is evolving and being shaped by the unique challenges of the past year, which is affecting every business, no matter what size and no matter where they are in the world. So a big thank you to Paul for sharing how office and home working technologies are actually evolving to meet these new challenges. And also for sharing his insights about how the relationship between employers and employees is changing, and ultimately giving employees more freedom to work in a way that suits them best. And it's not just working from home, of course. The expectation now is working from anywhere. And on this very topic, which is a universal theme, and I know we've got people listening all over the world, I'd love to hear your experiences and everything that you're going through at the moment, and how you're overcoming these challenges too, and the kind of kit, the kind of technology, the kind of solutions that you're using. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. You get me on social, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @Neil C. Hughes. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk, where you'll find over 1,300 podcast interviews with tech leaders from all over the world, and also how you can work with me. If you wanted to launch your own podcast but are not interested in editing audio files and setting up RSS feeds, I can work with you there. Or equally, if you've got any business blog writing, thought leadership posts, or tech articles, whatever it is, you can find out how you can work with me. Other than that, I'll return again tomorrow with another episode for your listening pleasure. So a big thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.